All right, so after your stain has dried, I usually do an overnight dry. The can says 6 to 8 hours, and usually I'll do that the latter half of the day so I can pick up with poly first thing in the morning. So I'm not gonna do too much about top coat theory. I'm not gonna overcomplicate that. I chose to do an oil base. My local paint store carries this Lenmar product. It's rated for floors. It's really durable. It levels out well. I really like it. I use it on projects like this. So that is my choice. You can actually put water-based polys over this oil-based stain. I have done it once and it's lasted very well. You do need to let it dry for a longer time though. So know that it is possible. Just do your due diligence, do your research. So just a couple notes about this. If you're curious, I'm using a Picasso stylus brush. I really like just the softness of the bristles. I think it drags over the wood well and just lays out a really nice layer. So I like this brush. Definitely use a vapor cartridge and a nice mask. This stuff is really heady. You don't want to be breathing this. And yeah, I'm gonna reposition the camera and just show you a couple nuances of how I brush this stuff on, but this part is pretty straightforward, so enjoy. All right, hopefully you can hear me well through the mask. If not, I guess I'll delete the audio and overdub it. This product is pretty thick, and this brush really did well. You don't want to put it on too thick, or else it'll drip and form globs. And this is the first coat, so it doesn't have to be crazy. This is the coat to seal everything up. Just like with the stain, I didn't put tape adjacent to the glass. Reason being, you want that wood and the glass sealed off a little bit, especially on the lower part of the sashes. That's where moisture will collect. People have humidifiers in their room, if there are vapor issues in the house, this spot right here is where water collects. And if you don't really seal that seam off well, that water will get into the wood and eventually harm it. Modern wood is not great. It is not very dense wood. It's from trees that are grown very quickly. The wood is basically helpless. There's a lot of anecdotes about people's new pressure-treated decking, about people's new replacement windows rotting like alarmingly fast. And some of that is installation and finishing, but some of that is that the wood is just really helpless. So get a little bit on the glass, and if you're careful, it will be unnoticeable. And if it is noticeable, you can take like a 6-inch kind of wide putty knife and just kind of butt it up. I can show you. You can just do that, and it will become invisible. So as you can see, I'm kind of cutting in, so to speak. I am doing the edges first, and then coming back and brushing out the main part of the sash. And again, I'm not skimping, but I'm not applying it too liberally, because I store these vertically as they dry, just because of the space of the job. And the last thing I want is sags. So those are those 3 sides. And same thing with the mill glaze, where you check to see if you got it off. We're gonna do the same thing, but for the opposite reason. You're gonna look against the light, and any dry spots will be really obvious. Those are called holidays. So after you check for those, one swipe, and you're leaving it alone. One benefit of oil-based coatings is that they level out really, really well. What does that mean? When you brush things on, there are brush marks. Most acrylic coatings, unless they are sprayed, will not level out as well as oil-based coatings. That's mostly because of the open time, but it also has some things to do with ingredients. These oil-based coatings will generally take longer to cure, but what that gives them the opportunity to do is rid themselves of those brush marks, just become that glass-like surface, that tabletop surface. Wondering if I sound like Darth Vader in this thing. It's important, right now I'm getting the outside facing part of the top lip. No one will ever see this, but again, this wood is pretty much helpless. You really want to coat all sides of it, all exposed sides. That's part of the reason we pulled them. End grain, you want to get the end grain, that's where the rot starts. Seal that end grain up. And check. I see a dry spot there. You probably can't see it, but you get the drift. This first coat is going into the bare wood. It's going to dry very quickly compared to the second coat. The first coat absorbs into the wood and really seals it off, while the second coat is laying on top of that first coat. So it takes longer to dry. That'll be the next phase I'll show. So I'm checking all my angles. Last thing I'll do is rotate it towards the light so I can check the top. And that looks great. One little holiday there. And that's it. I will check back in after this one dries, and I'll show you what I do in between first and second coat. Okay, hopefully your first coat of poly dried really well. Mine did. So what I do in between coats of polyurethane is a really quick and light scuff sand. Either these felt back pads or especially these blocks. I'm using a 3M 220 grit block. They work really well. And you want to be careful in this part because you only have one layer of polyurethane covering that stain. The last thing you want to do is sand too hard, burn through that layer of polyurethane and scuff your stain, because that's going to show if you start getting into that wood layer. So this is a really gentle once over coat. You're really just knocking down any dust, anything that settled in it overnight, any bubbles or any sags. You just want to get them out in between coats so you can maintain that really nice glass-like finish. I always keep a vacuum on when I do this. I don't want that dust, the polyurethane dry dust in my lungs on the project. So, you know, just keep that clean, keep yourself safe. So I did that in between each and every coat. I'm doing 2 coats of this project, of this poly product. That is what the can recommends. Some say 3, so follow whatever your can says. And I will check back in to show you my finished windows and what I do to reinstall and close this project out. Okay, so the last round of my windows are coated fully. I did the last round about 3 hours ago, and these windows that you're seeing right in front of you are already dry to the touch. This stuff is impressive. It doesn't mean to recoat it in 3 hours, but it means you can move it around and see what it's going to look like. And just look how even that film is. As someone who, I'm young, I grew up in the acrylic age, I'm constantly amazed going back to oils and just watching how nicely things level out. So that's what you should see by the end of this. A really nice glass-like finish. And I will close out with you next, show you reinstallation and final thoughts. Okay, so you pop your hardware back on, pop them back in, and you are done. Now the rest of the trim package was outside of the scope of what I was doing on this project, so it doesn't match perfectly, but the client got what they wanted as far as the window sash was concerned. Alright, so that wraps that up. Just a few final thoughts as far as future maintenance and just general housekeeping with your wooden windows. Some people run humidifiers in their house. Some houses have vapor issues. Either of those things can cause condensation to build up around here and here. And if you have moisture constantly dripping onto these wooden windows, no matter how well they were finished, it's gonna eventually be a problem. So keep that in mind and consult a general contractor or just, someone who knows more about that if that's a perpetual problem, because that will eventually affect the quality of any quality job. And last thing, we covered a lot of ground in this 3-part series, so thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate it. Any questions about any part of this, leave them down below in the comment section, and I look forward to hearing them. Thanks again.